Again, thank you everyone for being here tonight. Next, we're going to hear from Fresh Squeezed 8 artist Jayde Archbold. And we're very excited to have Jayde's work here. She hails from Dade City, and I'm going to let her talk more about herself. And she'll also be teaching a workshop. You'll be talking, will you mention that in the talk? Okay, perfect. Then without further ado, here's Jayde.
Hi everyone, thanks everybody for coming. I'm Jayde, and I just want to say thank you to Amanda and all the staff at the Morian for putting the show together. It came out so good and so beautifully, and I'm so proud of all of us. Go us. Also, do I just use the arrows to do? Okay, I don't see that on my screen, so I was just checking. But I'm Jayde again. So a little bit about me. Mine seems very short compared to Camilla's, but here we are. So I was born in Tampa. I was a Florida native. I've grown up here my whole life. And then I moved to Dade City in 2007. It's a very small town, a little bit north of here, a little bit north of Tampa. I love living there. It's an adorable little town. And then for schooling, I went to USF and got my BFA in studio art. My concentration was in painting. And then after that, I actually started working in a public library, and I realized that that's something that was kind of cool. And I've always loved libraries. They've always had a special place in my heart. And as I kind of was working there, I got tuition reimbursement for pursuing a master's degree, so that's one of the main reasons why I did it. But it was something that I did want to pursue as a career, so I ended up getting my master's in library science, and now I'm a librarian. So that's awesome. I love my job, and I'm also an artist still, so I do both. So this is probably the main question I get. What inspires you? And that's such a loaded question when it comes to art, because it's a lot to think about. It's like anything that you've seen or experienced in your whole life of what could inspire you. But I have some images and some bullet points I'm going to go through, so I'll just go through those. Culture is a big one for me. A little bit I'm inspired from my own culture, which I'll talk about a little bit later, and a lot of other cultures around the world. I'm very drawn to tradition and other cultures, especially indigenous cultures. And a lot of American culture too, like the quilt in there. Textiles, clothing, jewelry, fashion, all those things are super, super interesting to me. Architecture as well is a big one. On the far right over there, those are actually, all of these are pictures that I took as well, so they're not like random pictures. I tried to do that because I didn't want to do any like copyright weird stuff. But anyways. They are my pictures on the right-hand side of my trip to Aruba, and I was really inspired by the architecture there, and anywhere I go, I try to capture those images of things that inspire me. I am inspired a lot by design and pattern and color. I would say the main one that kind of evokes that is that second one on the top right. It's a painting by Frank Stella at the Tampa Museum of Art. I love his use of color and how he kind of traps that pink inside of that blue triangle with the one rounded side. It's such a good use of color, and you guys can see that I love color. It's a huge factor in my work and in how I design my paintings and how I compose them. Books are a big one for me. Obviously, I work in a library. I'm going to be honest with you guys, I'm not really a reader. Don't judge me. I went to school to help other people find information, not to read. I don't read at work. But I'll check out books just to look at the pictures and not read any of the words. I'm sorry, please don't judge me. So that's what the bottom, the second one on the bottom, of the woman is a book called Africa Adorned, and it was withdrawn from our collection, and of course, I have first dibs since I work at the library, so I had to take it home with me. It was like, oops, water damage, I guess it's mine now. So I love that picture, I love that book. It's a whole collection of women in Africa and how they adorn, it's women and men, how they adorn themselves within their different tribes and cultures. And I love going back to that book and getting ideas. Another thing too is patterns in nature. You'll see in some of my works, I'll reference like flower petals or leaves, things like that. Very like sourced from nature, so to speak. I did used to actually paint Florida botanicals before I painted these. I didn't include that in the presentation, but we live in Florida. There's plants everywhere. I'm always inspired by what is around us, especially the nature. And then again, the travel and experiences from my trip in Aruba. It's funny that I had included that picture because there were certain things or certain connections that I had drawn only to realize when I put the presentation together of like the connections that I made between that specific church on the top right and one of my paintings, this one here, the circles around the mirrors have the same stripes around the mirrors as the windows do, and the arches as well in this painting over there. So kind of like subconsciously, I picked up these patterns and things from my travels and things that I see or reference in real life and work them into the paintings eventually. Another thing, I put these kind of separate because they're just like a kind of side note. Things that I'm like naturally drawn to are structure and balance. I'm a Libra. Whether you believe in zodiacs or not, I think they're real. Structure and balance is something that I value in my work. I usually strive for balance. It's very interesting because I feel like throughout my studies and throughout school, I was kind of pushed to do the opposite, to make things look a certain way. I'm not gonna say ugly, but I was told specific things that like maybe it's too pretty or it's, I've been told my paintings are too pretty. Ask me how that makes sense, I don't know. I don't think there's anything wrong with things being beautiful. There's no limit to things being beautiful. So that's where I stand on that. And I'm drawn to symmetry and order. I actually like what you said in your talk, Camilla, about you having like control over your paintings, because I feel like in mine as well, there is a lot of things in your life that you really can't control. So painting for me, I can create my own order and my own structure within these paintings that I create, regardless of what's happening on the outside or in the outside world. So that's something that I just wanted to include. Something that's important to me is creating that structure and order within my work. So here's a little bit of my process. They don't always start out this way, my paintings. And honestly, paintings is kind of a loose word since they've become very mixed media at this point. But these two specifically, I did start with a sketch beforehand, and they do change so much from the original sketch to the final painting. There's a lot of decision making that's involved that I'm going to talk about on the next slide, especially for the big one here. But there's a lot of changes that as I'm painting or going through the painting, I'm like, this is really ugly, and I can't keep looking at this like this. It really is a like internal battle with myself of how can I make this look the way I want it to look. And it's mainly a color thing. Color is huge in my work. When I do build the color palettes, I like to be a sustainable artist. I'll usually use previous colors that I've used that I have saved. I'll either like tint them or make them a little bit darker so all the paintings aren't exactly the same color. So you'll see some of the colors kind of flow through each of the paintings, but maybe in different tints or shades or variations of a similar pink or blue. I do a lot of pattern play with my work. They're not always 100% symmetrical. I do that on purpose because we are human. I am not machine. I cannot make 100% symmetrical paintings. Occasionally I'll measure. For this big one here, I traced a laundry basket on there because that's the biggest circle that I had. So I'm grateful for the laundry basket. Thank you, thrift store. So just like a little bit insight into that. The patterns are never 100% symmetrical. I kind of look at and the different ways it can be symmetrical. We all remember like 3rd and 4th grade math class with the radial symmetry. It can be symmetrical this way, or vertical, horizontal, diagonal. So all of those come into play, as you can see, especially in this one here. It's never symmetrical all the way around completely on any variation of the circles or any part of the painting as a whole. I'll usually play with diagonals, the color coordination, like going across or vertical. It keeps it fun for me, and I feel like it keeps people's eye wandering around the painting, and it kind of makes you like make new connections as you look at it, because your eye might be expecting a full pattern all the way around, but I don't want to say asymmetry, but that lack of perfect symmetry, it kind of makes you think a little bit and kind of breaks up the 100%, I guess, perfection of what the symmetry could be. I do like to balance a lot of large and small patterns, so that's why you'll see the large, like larger areas of color, and then the small, like micro stripes or dots. I'm 100% a details person. I love doing the little dots. That's my favorite part. The hardest part for me is starting. It's the worst thing ever, and I'm going to show you why it's the worst thing ever in the next slide. But my goal is also contrast. Again, with the color, I really like to punch it up and make people look at it. This is where also the nature comes in. When you think about butterflies or flowers, their colors are purposeful and they're intentional through evolution. So I thought that was beautiful, and a lot of things that I put in my work, the oranges and the blacks and the pinks and the blues, those have references to nature as well. So this painting took me about 2 to 3 months overall to make, outside of my working hours, which is full-time, but I love it. Like I said, I do love it. I swear the county is not watching me. I do love it. But so starting from the top left here and then going across and then through the bottom, that's kind of where it started. I do usually start in the center. To me, it just feels correct. I don't know. I think the only one I actually started on the outside was this one up here above the TV. With the kind of flower in the middle of the orange, red, blue. But I did start in the center for this one, and for most of them I do. It kind of helps it grow. It kind of like, I guess for lack of a better term, grow. It grows like a plant does, like a flower from the inside and kind of blooms outward. It feels natural for me to work that way, and you can see as it goes through the process, there's so many changes that happen. Especially with some of the colors and the shapes. I'm like, there's too much orange in there, I gotta break that up. Another kind of game I like to play with myself too is I don't usually let the same colors touch in the painting, which when you're using like 7 different colors, that gets hard to do. So it becomes this like personal challenge for me to not let the colors touch and put them all together in a way that is visually striking to me and to other people. But this one was definitely a chug, I would say that, uphill battle for sure. Another thing too that's kind of like I've never tried before was a stencil. This shape here, that shape there was a stencil, so that was kind of fun to play with that. I normally don't use stencils, I'll just use like a yardstick and a ruler, and of course my trusty laundry basket. But otherwise, it's really normally freehand, and I'll just use the rulers to help guide me for the straight lines. So I did want to talk a little bit about the materials, because sometimes they get a little bit unconventional. I wanted to bring up this one specifically because the 6 colorful circles in the center of the final painting, which is on the bottom right, they're actually bingo chips I bought at a flea market. I saw the bag and I was like, look how amazing, all of these little like stupid circles look in this bag. I love it so much. So like, it's kind of like the gummy bear thing. Like sometimes you're just inspired by like certain things you just see in your life, or when you're just walking around doing mundane things. So I picked those bingo chips up and put them in there. Why not? So with the newer work, like this one, I think this was the last one that I made. It was like actually a couple days before I dropped everything off here. I've been, in addition to the paint, I've been adding buttons, jewelry. You'll see, I was playing with some jewelry in there. These are like progress photos of several iterations of things I tried, and I'm just like, man, that's just not working for me. And it's really hard to explain verbally why it doesn't work. You just know that when you're making it, you know that like that's not the vision that you had for it, or that's not the outcome that you had intended for that piece, or certain things you put on there are distracting from what I really want people to see or notice in the painting. So that's why I kind of strayed away from the options, the first 3 options on the top. It felt a little distracting to me. But otherwise, I found some gold paper that I incorporated in there, and then again with the mirrors. And I'm gonna go to the next slide, which has like a breakdown of one of the collages, which is also pretty new. So I wanted to include this one specifically because this one I just went all out. This was towards the end of my art making for this particular exhibit. So you guys will notice this one is not symmetrical, and I kind of thought about that for a little bit. I was like, why is it not symmetrical? I don't always make them symmetrical, but to me, it's still, the shapes appear to me as if they're like relying on each other for structure, even though they're just pieces of paper or like soft materials. I structured them in a way there that they're kind of relying on each other for this balance, or leaning on each other to create this structure, so to speak, or tapestry it kind of looks like too. But there's probably upwards of like 15 to 20 different materials in here. I use ribbon, there's some gold washi tape in there. My dad's cigar label, I told him to save them for me. He was happy about seeing that in there. I'm happy that I incorporated him in there somewhere, because to be honest, he usually doesn't care. Love you, Dad, though, I love you. But he was happy to see that in there. But there's cutouts from magazines. Of course, the books again. I'm so grateful to be surrounded by so many books every day, and especially children's books, like have amazing illustrations. So I get a lot of cutouts from there, from books that we take out of the collection. I have some screen printed paper in there with the blue and red and pink triangles. The gold paper, it was like some strange, I guess it wasn't strange, maybe it's just strange to me. It was honestly like some Family Dollar, children's poster paper, and I was like, I need that gold, it's so good. So it was, I cut that up, and the circles I did with a little hole punch. So I've been experimenting with that a little bit, some freehand cutting versus the hole punches. And then another cool thing I wanted to point out specifically is the botanical print paper. We got donated this book of these amazing botanical prints to the library, and it was 100 years old. And I was just like, well, if no one else is gonna take it, then I will. So there we go. It's mine now. So it's just one of those things. It's like you're never gonna come across this ever again in your entire life. So find a way to put it in there. So this is another question I get as well, and totally fine to ask additional questions if I don't answer them all here. But a lot of people ask, what does this mean to you? Or what country is this from? I don't understand. And I will say that they are somewhat of a self-portrait is what I've come to realize, that as I have grown up, especially when I moved to Dade City, I got more questions about my culture. It was a very small town, so the racial diversity was really not there, to no fault of the town. It's a beautiful town, but that's just demographically how it is. So as I grew up there, I moved there in middle school, like obviously the most awkward time in your life, and everyone's asking me, what are you, what are you? And I'm just like, how do I explain this to people? So if anything, it didn't really offend me. It actually made me think more about what I am. Actually, it made me ask my mom questions. What is my culture? Where are we from? And how does this play into my life? And how does this make me the kind of person that I am? To satisfy the curiosity, if anyone was wondering, my mom is from Belize, in Central America, and my dad's side, his mother is from Honduras, and his father was from Colombia. Oh, I almost forgot. He was from Colombia. I grew up here though. My mom was born in Belize. For a short time, she moved to America when she was very young. My dad was born here, I was born here, my siblings were born here. So I really don't have a huge connection to that side of my culture aside from food and my mom speaking Creole to her family, English Creole. So like we don't speak Spanish, we don't engage in any like huge traditions. So in a way, the paintings became a sort of self-portrait of that, and they don't really come from one specific place. I always will smash together different sources of influence from different countries because that's what I am. People look at me and they say, what am I? Where are you from? What is that? I don't know. So it kind of translates to the paintings as well. I've gotten so many different countries, and it's funny but also super interesting. People look at them. I've gotten Pakistan, Turkey, Spain, Morocco, Central, South America, Mexico. I get almost every country in the world, which is, again, similar to my own experience. So many people ask me, I'm never afraid to share. I'm happy to share what my culture is and what my background is. But another thing, too, is the mirrors have been a recent addition for me. They're not in all of the works, but in some of them. I kind of like the fact that when I added them, I could kind of see into the painting a little bit because my paintings are very opaque. The paint is applied very smooth, and there's not really any areas of like washiness. It kind of opens up like another dimension for me to see myself, and for other people when they walk by to see themselves in the work as well, and kind of reflect physically and figuratively, I guess, on your own experience with that work. And also people like to look at themselves. If you didn't know that, we love looking at our reflection. So I think that's another cool thing about it too, is people can kind of make their own experience when they look at it from looking at the mirrors. Another thing that is like another layer of meaning in my work is spiritual context. I'm not necessarily a religious person currently, but I have had people approach me saying it reminds them of mandalas, so they could be spiritual in that aspect. They are very meditative to look at. I will say though, I do draw, from the architecture aspect, I do draw a lot of my inspiration from floor plans, which is on the bottom right. I took an art history class, AP art history in high school, and it was this like 1,200 page textbook, and we just sat there and had to read the book, and she didn't teach anything, and she'll never see this, so I can say that. Anyways, I looked at so many of those floor plans of all these huge cathedrals in France and Spain, everywhere in Europe, and I was just drawn to the structure and I guess the shape of them, how us humans could create something so beautiful, especially just like we're just us, you guys, we're just us, and we made these amazing things. We've made structures that have stood for 400 or 500 years, and they're still here. So I think that's such an amazing thing to think about. So I definitely draw a lot of my inspiration from there. I love looking at the details and just the time and care that it took and the money that it took to put into these structures that made them so beautiful to stand the test of time and to be something, again, that whether you're religious or not, people are going back there. Millions of people go back to see them and appreciate them over time. So I feel like that's definitely something that's almost kind of lost in our culture, especially in America, that we haven't built anything like that. We don't have hardly any of the same, I guess, artistic appreciation for architecture. A lot of things are becoming very modern in nature, and a lot of our structures and our society is moving towards like this sad beige gray. It's depressing, you guys. So you know what I'm talking about. It's everyone's doing the sad gray beige. I don't want my whole house to be gray. So anyways, that's where the floor plans come in. But I think lastly, what I want you guys to take away from this is that I always welcome people's experiences. I've connected with people through my artwork. As soon as they see it, they immediately tell me what it reminds them of. I got someone who was like, I've been to Belize, you're from Belize? They have beautiful barrier reefs. And I was like, yes, I do know that. So it's a cool way to connect with people. And I get to know where they've traveled. I tell them where I've been and tell them what the work means to me, and they can, again, share their own experiences, cultural or travel experiences, personal experiences with me, and we can relate to that over my painting. So I think that is a beautiful thing in and of itself, is that I can connect with people through that way, through beauty and appreciation, and through art, through design, and through shared experiences in culture and in life. So that's officially the end, I suppose. I do have a workshop coming up here about repurposing papers and different things for collage art. So that's there, and I'm on social media if you'd like to follow me. And I also have a newsletter. I send it out a couple times a month, so you're welcome to scan the QR code. And you can take you to a website or to my website to sign up for the newsletter. So yeah, I'll send you updates on shows and whatever classes and things I have coming up, so you know where I am next, because I don't know where that is yet currently. So once this comes down, I'm not sure where it'll be. So yeah, thank you. Does anyone have any question?
Did she answer all of them?
Was my talk so thorough, or just no one cared?
It was very thorough. Very thorough.
I checked all the boxes, yes.
Mine's less of a question, more of an applaud to you. I think hearing about both spaces that you've been in art education settings, I feel like there's so much great things that can come from that, but also a lot of detriment that can happen, and a lot of artists that I know who stop making work because of things they've been told, like your work is too symmetrical or pretty. And so I guess to put that in a question form, when you were told that, did it affect you immediately? Because now you know, the thing that stuck with me from your talk was that, and how proudly you say it, and it's really inspiring. So I wanted to know if that was a process, or if you just knew that that's what your work was going to be.
Yeah, so that, I'm going to be honest, guys, art school was rough. And like, you know, Camilla knows, she's doing it right now. I've been out for 8 years. It's been really nice. I'm gonna be honest, like, being in art school did teach me a lot. It taught me the formal education that I needed to think about art critically and make my work. I did go through a lot of different styles when I was in art school, so I was kind of finding myself there. I was actually doing portraits for a little bit, and then I moved to more abstract, and then I started doing botanicals. But when she did tell me that, it was one of my professors. It was weird, and she wasn't the first one to say that either. In this process of me trying to find my styles, I had made a sort of like semicircle painting that was very similar, almost like it would have fit in the show perfectly. I made a work that was this style, and it again like was ripped apart in my critique, and I'm just like, this is the only thing that I have. I put my actual heart and soul into this, and you guys don't even appreciate it. That is so rude. But no, like, I think it did take me a while to kind of like circle back to myself and what I knew I wanted to make. Especially like after graduation, I graduated in 2016 from USF. And I was like, I didn't have a studio space anymore, so I had to like kind of find myself again in like what kind of work do I want to make. I don't have my peers around me to give me constructive criticism. I don't have my professors to give me unconstructive criticism. So like I don't have any criticism at all. So really like where does that leave me now? So it did take me several years to come back to the point where this is actually what I want to make. And I didn't mention it here in this talk, but I actually did a residency in Texas, and I was making these like abstract like landscape and botanical things all the way up until that point. And when I went to Texas, I went to San Antonio, and I was like, look at this town, like it is so amazing. Look how much pride these people have in their culture and their colors and their art and where they come from. And that sparked something within me. I was like, I should be making something else. I should be making something else for sure. So when I realized that, I came back to what I wanted to make, and because several years had passed, I was like, other people's opinions of my paintings don't really matter to me because I'm making it for me now. So yeah, like it's my hands, it's my brain, it's my art. You're not paying for my art supplies. So yeah, that was kind of a long answer, but it did take a while for me to come back to that point, but I'm there and I'm happy with it, and this is what I'm gonna make until I tell myself not to. Thank you for your question.
There's a lot of geometry in your work, and yet you say you don't measure. You have just a really good eye.
Does that contradict itself somehow that I don't measure, but it's so symmetrical and so orderly? So to an extent, I measure. I would say that I start measuring only to find the center, so I know where the middle is, and whatever radiates from that point, sometimes I will measure like, okay, this is 1 inch from the center, and then I want this to go out 2 inches. But even when you look at it, like I don't, like for this, the pink like radiating triangle-y pattern that's coming out of the center, like you can always tell it's a little bit off, and it always is, because my goal is not to make it look like it was made by a machine or it was made digitally, like it was made by my own hands. So the triangles will always be a little bit wobbly, and the circle is traced by a laundry basket, so it has its own autonomy. It's its own thing, and I don't like math, so I will also say that I got a C in geometry. Was not good at it, and then I was just like, this is one of the things that, you know, when your teacher tells you should pay attention because you're going to use this, that's the only thing I should have paid attention to. But like not to a huge extent though. I use geometry or math, but really just to find the center and to just like find my place on the work. But I don't like to rely on it too much to still keep or maintain the handmade and hand painted element. And a lot of times too, you'll see on like the indigenous, like the little painted animals or something, like if they have patterns, they're always a little bit wobbly, and I love that. I think that's so cool, and again, the goal is really not to make this beautiful, perfect thing, but it's perfect to me. It's perfectly made by me and from me for someone else to enjoy. So yeah. Thank you.
I have one more question.
Yeah.
Okay, so like I love collage as a medium, and I think it's so exciting and amazing, but storing things is so complicated. How do you store all these things? Please, I would love to hear.
Oh yeah, you're asking the person who has a degree in organizing
Yes.
stuff. Let me tell you. So I do have For the smaller things, I bought these little tackle boxes at the flea market, and honestly, this goes for all the things I use. Like, I consider this a collage as well because there's ribbon and mirrors and things in there, buttons. The tackle boxes really help. I will put different little beads and mirrors and wood pieces in there to separate the tiny things that can roll away. For the papers, I have like a little the little cheap plastic drawer thing. Honestly, when I'm cutting things up, I will sweep it all in my hand and sort every single piece back to what is still usable and what's not usable. There's so many little pieces that I cut off and was like, this is still good, I can still use this. So I do save those pieces, especially for like these ones here. There's still so much left over that can be used. So yeah, the drawers, the tackle boxes, envelopes. I used to have an accordion folder. I still do have the accordion folder to hold like magazine pages that I rip out. So that's really helpful. And they have the tabs on top where you can like label, like this is pictures of plants, this is patterns, this is landscapes or grass, this is people. So you can get as crazy as you want and like keep it all in order.
Love
Yes.
that, thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah.
Do you ever go to Michael's and see all the paper that they have with the patterns on it? Because I notice you use all solid colors. Would you ever think of using like patterned paper?
Yes, I do use pattern paper. I will say this. I try to be environmentally and financially sustainable. So again, there's just something about, and I'm not saying that I don't buy paper, but I'm saying that there's something about a used piece of paper, especially the ones in books, that are just so fascinating to me, especially old books, like the book from Paris, is that even, yes, this one here. This little circle right there. But there's something so cool about like reusing something that was used for something else that I find fascinating. So I'm usually digging out of the recycling bin at my job for papers. I'm not ashamed. They're so good. They're so good. I can't leave them there. But I also don't live by Michael's. Remember, I live in like little cow town. I don't live by Michael's. So that's a short answer, I guess. Michael's is 30 minutes from me. But I do have some screen printed papers in here that people have given me, or I found myself in Orlando visiting a friend one time, and there's this store called Sandflax, amazing art store, and they have like hand screen printed papers, like huge sheets. So I still have those. They go very far in my tiny little things. So I have yet to check out Michael's paper section though and see what that looks like. So I'm open to everything, all the papers.
Yeah, I just at one time I did a lot of scrapbooking, so I actually have a lot of it left over.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Papers are so fun. There's so many different patterns and all the things you can find in there. So yeah. Anybody else?
Thank you, Jayde.
Thank you guys. Thank you everyone for coming.